Hello everyone, Matt the Gameboyle here. This week doing something a little different, admittedly. So, a lot of you have asked me down in the comments or on Twitter at Gameboyle, if you're following me there already, what I use to record my Game Boy videos. Well, at present I really use what's available to me, if I'm being honest. I have one of these, a GameCube controller, and I'm playing hooked up through an Elgato via the Game Boy player. While this is very nice, it does mean that I'm recording my videos through composite, which, as some of you may have noticed, leads to varying degrees of quality in my uploads, which is a bit of a shame. It's also to do with the processing power of my Mac, as it takes an awful long time to render some of those videos. That's all about change, because I have in my hands one of these little beauties. This is a prototype of a HDMYBOY. Josh and Zane, the guys behind this, have been kind enough to lend me their prototype for a couple of days to film it and to show you hopefully what it's all about. So, let's get cracking.
So, as you will have seen, aesthetically the HDMYBOY will not change the overall look of your DMG other than its girth. While this prototype is a little thicker and duct tapier than the version that's going to market, if anything it makes the Game Boy a little easier to hold, if perhaps a little heavier. It requires no soldering and simply sits between the two shells of the Game Boy, kinda like a sandwich, meaning it can be easily removed if needed.
So, as you might expect from a console called HDMYBOY, it's pretty simple to use, to be honest with you. On the side here there is a HDMI port, and you literally take a HDMI cable and you plug it in. That's simple, and we're good to go.
If we turn the HDMYBOY on its side, we can see where the HDMI lead fits into the console. While this is not the final positioning of the port, it really didn't get in the way of me playing during the 3 sets of batteries I used up testing it. There are 2 small buttons on either side of this port, one that lets you switch the game's colour palette, and the other stretching the image to fit the screen. While these 2 functions are already present in Nintendo's Game Boy player, the HDMYBOY at least aims to up the available palettes to 32 colours from the only 12 available on the official Nintendo systems. Audio is output via the HDMI lead also, meaning you can enjoy full stereo sound of the game's score effortlessly. To demonstrate the graphical fidelity of the HDMYBOY, I went back to one of my favourite games on the system, and the first game I ever recorded a video on for a side-by-side comparison, Kirby's Dream Land. The sharpness of the picture quality really cannot be understated. Using a custom chip, the HDMYBOY is able to pixel perfectly redraw the game on a larger screen, meaning that there's no dodgy upscaling or stretching of the image going on. What you can see on screen is what's happening on the Game Boy, meaning if you really wanted to, you could play on the handheld and let others spectate without any slowdown or disruption between what you and your audience were seeing. Perhaps the HDMYBOY's only flaw is making the games so sharp that it can interfere with some of the transparencies used by developers to wring more depth out of the system, and also exposes some of the more seemingly beautiful game's flaws in the process. But when you consider that some games like Road Rash are literally uncapturable without the HDMYBOY, other than emulation, not to mention unlicensed cards like those by Satchen can be used on this system, then to some it will be worth the trade-off. The HDMYBOY will also allow the capture of some of the system's most obscure peripherals, like the Barcode Boy and Pocket Sonar, not to mention the fun that can be had with the Game Boy camera in the original hardware without the need for complicated workarounds. Being able to play in the handheld itself is also a huge advantage, as while it is possible to use a Game Boy Advance through the Game Boy player as opposed to a GameCube controller, it never feels quite the same. For those of you looking to turn your handheld into a home console, the HDMYBOY will also support an NES controller for those looking to lie back on the couch and play some classic Game Boy games. As a Game Boy enthusiast and reviewer, the HDMYBOY is a dream come true for me. It's the original hardware, making for optimal conditions to experience these great games as they would have been if I'd bought them in the 90s, without any of the eye strain the DMG used to cause me. While the prototype of this beautiful peripheral will cost you more than a Game Boy player, if you really want to see the beauty of a Game Boy, I'd consider picking one up. If you're unsure, maybe wait and see what the future holds, but I, for one, can't wait to get my hands on one. Thank you for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed this in-depth first sneak peek at the HDMI boy. I will be doing some more videos in this kind of style of the Peripheral Vision in the future, perhaps when I get my own HDMI boy, because then I can do some of the pre-mentioned accessories like the pocket sonar and the barcode boy, which I've really wanted to cover on this channel for a long time. If you have enjoyed the video, please share it around with A, anyone you think might be interested in the HDMI boy, or B, anyone that you think likes Game Boy games. If you really enjoyed this video and you haven't seen the channel before, why not check out some of our Boyographic videos, the series in which I, Matt the Gameboy, look at the highs and lows of the Game Boy library one card at a time. Why not check out some of our Boy Curious videos in which I look at bootlegs and oddities for the Game Boy system. When I get my HDMI boy, I will be looking in depth at the Satchen 4-in-1 carts, not to mention some of the Wisdom Tree games, so maybe you want to subscribe for that, or check out all the glory! Cut out all of the deaths and time wasting, leaving none of the faff, but giving you all of the glory. And to celebrate this use of the HDMI boy, I have just uploaded in all the glory of Kirby's Dream Land that I captured on the HDMI boy, so please go check that out too. Until next week, boys and girls, when a regular Boyographic video will appear, game on.